The Nabataeans were an ancient Arab people that eventually came to form a kingdom in northern Arabia and the southern Levant, with Petra as its capital. Petra, in Greek, is stone or rock, which seems a fitting description not only of the city itself, but the entire region. Of course, the Nabataeans were not Greek, so they referred to their city as Rakmu, which means colored stone. The allure of this city is undeniable. Petra is large, monumental, built in the harshest of environments, yet despite its fame, we know relatively little about the people who built the city, the ancient Nabataeans. The Nabataeans were ethnically Arab and spoke an early form of Nabatean Arabic. Hebrew, Arabic, and Aramaic are three well-known examples under the Semitic language tree. Although they communicated with one another in Nabataean Arabic, they appeared to have initially adopted the Aramaic alphabet to communicate in writing. It might seem odd that they had their own language but used the alphabet of another people. However, it would seem logical to borrow the Aramaic alphabet rather than create a brand new one. Other benefits of using the Aramaic alphabet included its well-established use since the 8th century BC. It originated from the Mariamnes who inhabited the northern Levant, adjacent to where the Nabataeans were concentrated. The Aramaic alphabet borrowed by the Nabataeans gradually evolved a lot of loops and ligatures to connect letters and words together, likely to increase speed of writing. This is akin to the cursive you were taught in school. Also, under the Nabataeans, there was the usage of Arabic loanwords and grammatical borrowings into the written language. Although a distinct Nabataean people no longer exist, their legacy lives on as their late alphabet served as the foundation of early written Arabic. The Nabataean people likely started out as nomadic Bedouins of the Hijaz, which would be an area of the Western Arabian Peninsula, including present-day Jeddah, Mecca, and Medina. At some point in history, they migrated north into Jordan, the Negev, the Sinai, and southern Syria. Between the 4th and 2nd century BCE, they coalesced as a more defined people. The formation of the Nabataean kingdom is usually dated to 168 BCE, with the capital at Petra, and ending in 106 CE. At the height of the Nabataean kingdom, Petra likely held 20,000 people. You might be shocked by this number given the extent and grandeur of the structures in Petra. How did a population of 20,000 manage to give rise to a city as grand as Petra? The answer to this likely rests in their immense wealth from trade. From the 1st century BCE to the end of the 1st century CE, the Roman Empire had developed an almost insatiable thirst for luxury items that the Nabataeans happily facilitated via their trade routes. The Nabataeans controlled and further developed the incense trade route that stretched from Yemen at the end of the Arabian Peninsula up the west coast to the Nabataean kingdom. The Nabataeans provided shelter and water at settlements along this route, as well as directly taxed goods that entered the kingdom. Exotic goods from as far away as India, China, Africa, as well as local goods from the Arabian Peninsula itself, flowed through these trading routes, thereby funding Petra's construction. The end of the Nabataean kingdom in 106 CE by the Romans was in part to control these lucrative trade routes. When you wander around Petra, you're immediately struck by the sheer size of many of these structures. It goes without saying that most of these grand structures served as temples or burial tombs. Like many of their fellow northern Arab peoples, the Nabataeans were polytheistic. There was a pantheon of similarly shared gods amongst the various Arab peoples, although the Nabataeans appeared to have particularly venerated Dushara as a supreme god. As the Arab Nabataeans entered the southern Levant from the Hijaz, they came into contact with already established cultures such as the Greeks and Egyptians. Like many ancient civilizations, the Nabataeans heavily borrowed ideas from their neighbors. This is quite apparent when we examine the architecture at Petra. The monastery prominently displays carved faux columns or pilasters, a faux broken pediment, which is the triangular upper part of a building, and a carved central tholos or circular building. The Greco-Roman influence here is indisputable. At the obelisk tomb, we see an integration of Nabataean and Greek design elements with Greek pilasters, both a broken pediment and a segmental pediment, coupled with Nabataean nefeshes or grave markers, which are the four obelisk-shaped structures noted on the top of the tomb. In the Nabataean second largest city of Hegra, over 500 kilometers south of Petra, similar architectural elements are seen. The structures in Hegra appear to have multiple influences thrown together, with Egyptian cornices, Mesopotamian merlons, and Greek pilasters. The presence of these architectural findings in both Petra and Hegra speak to the significant influence the surrounding cultures had on all of Nabatea. Speaking of outside influences on the Nabataeans, one can't help but wonder what the influence of the contemporaneous and adjacent kingdom of Judea had on them. After all, the famed Jewish king Herod the Great's mother was a Nabataean noblewoman. Did the concept of a singular god influence the polytheistic pantheon that existed among the northern Arabian tribes at the time of the Nabataean kingdom? Was the Nabataean kingdom a conduit for monotheistic thought down the Hejaz to the Yemeni region? The answers to these questions are well beyond the time allotted for this video. If you're visiting Petra, you'll most likely be entering down the Seek, a gorge that opens up to the magnificent treasury. The treasury is undoubtedly the most recognizable landmark in Petra. Although people casually refer to it as a treasury, it is actually the mausoleum of Nabataean king Aretas III. The Arabic name for this structure loosely translates to the treasury of the pharaoh, and this is where the popular reference to it as a treasury originates from. The story behind the name is surprisingly related to the Jewish exodus from Egypt. Biblical literature describes the Jewish people fleeing from Egyptian pursuit. At what is presumably the Red Sea, Moses, the leader of the Jewish people, raises his staff, and God parts the seas, revealing a land corridor for the Jewish people to escape through. Traditionally, the Egyptian army is drowned when Moses drops his staff and the sea rushes back in. In the myth behind the treasury, however, the pharaoh and some of his army actually make it across in time before the waters return. Finding that the treasure he was carrying with him was slowing down his pursuit of the Jewish people, he magically created the treasury in Petra and stored his valuables there. As mentioned earlier, the Nabataean kingdom fell to the Roman Empire in 106 CE, in part to control the trade routes mentioned earlier. Here we have a Roman coin commemorating the defeat of the Nabataeans. King Aretas III is seen here kneeling in defeat besides a camel. Although difficult to see, he holds an olive branch in his hand, symbolizing his request for peace and friendship with the Romans. At the bottom of the coin, we see the word Rex Aretas, or King Aretas. The Romans renamed the area the province of Arabia Petraea. By the mid-2nd century CE, however, while still under Roman control, Petra began to suffer an economic decline. Overland trade routes were bypassing Petra for Palmyra in the north, and the Romans had developed seagoing trade routes from Yemen on the Arabian Peninsula to Egyptian ports on the Red Sea, and then down the Nile to the Mediterranean. With this economic downturn, Petra slowly faded into obscurity during the Byzantine period, until it was rediscovered by European travelers in the early 19th century. I'm looking forward to hearing about your experience at Petra. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, and subscribe.